My brother convinced our family I was mentally unstable to steal my inheritance, but the psychiatric evaluation I secretly recorded says otherwise. When Grandma Rosalie died, she left me everything: the Victorian house on Maple Street, her art collection, and $2 million in trust funds. My brother Caleb got nothing except her collection of vintage teacups, which he immediately donated to Goodwill. "This is ridiculous," he told our parents at the will reading. "I'm the responsible one. I have a wife and kids. Dakota's been acting strange for months." I wasn't acting strange. I was grieving. Grandma Rosalie had raised me after my parents shipped me off to boarding school at 12. She was the only person who understood my anxiety and never made me feel broken. When she got sick, I took family leave from my marketing job to care for her. Caleb visited twice in 6 months, both times asking if she'd updated her will, but suddenly everyone was concerned about my mental health. "Dakota's been talking to herself," Mom whispered to Dad after the funeral, "and she keeps saying Grandma's still here." I'd been reading Grandma's letters aloud in her bedroom, something that comforted me, but when I tried to explain, they exchanged those looks. The ones that said I was fragile and needed handling. Caleb started a subtle campaign. He'd visit with his wife Jennifer and they'd mention how I'd forgotten conversations that never happened, how I seemed paranoid about imaginary threats, how I'd accused the cleaning lady of stealing when I'd simply misplaced my keys. "She needs help," Caleb told our parents over dinner. "Professional help. I've been researching specialists." The lies got more elaborate. I was supposedly hoarding food in Grandma's pantry, leaving faucets running, talking to empty rooms for hours. None of it was true, but suddenly every family gathering became an intervention. "We're worried about you living alone in that big house," my aunt said during one particularly painful dinner. "Maybe you should consider assisted living." I was 28 years old. 2 weeks later, Mom called crying. "Sweetheart, we think you should see Dr. Brennan, just to process your grief." Dr. Brennan was a psychiatrist who specialized in competency evaluations. I realized what was happening, but I agreed to go. I needed to know exactly what game Caleb was playing. That's when I started recording everything. I bought a small digital recorder and hid it in my purse. During my first session, Dr. Brennan asked leading questions. "Your family is concerned about your relationship with reality. Have you been experiencing auditory hallucinations?" "No," I said clearly. "I read my grandmother's letters aloud because I miss her voice." "But your brother mentioned you respond as if she's answering?" I paused. "Sometimes I imagine what she'd say." "That's called grief, not psychosis." Dr. Brennan made notes, but his pen wasn't moving. He'd already reached his conclusion. After the session, I heard him talking to someone on his phone in the hallway. "The family wants her declared incompetent. I'll need 3 more sessions to build the case." My blood ran cold. I'd been set up. That night, I searched Caleb's social media and found posts about needing a fresh start and major life changes coming soon. His wife Jennifer had been liking posts about expensive vacations and home renovations. They were already spending my inheritance in their minds. I left the office and drove straight to Grandma's house, my house now. Inside her bedroom, I found her hidden safe behind the antique mirror. The combination was my birthday. Inside were documents that made my heart race. Letters from Caleb to Grandma, begging for money. Bank statements showing he'd borrowed against his house 3 times. And most damning of all, a contract with a property developer offering him $800,000 for Grandma's house, dated 2 weeks before she died. He'd been planning this long before the will was read, but there was more. A folder labeled Dakota's Future contained research about psychiatric facilities, costs of long-term care, and notes about establishing permanent guardianship. Caleb hadn't just wanted my money, he'd wanted me gone entirely. One note in his handwriting read, "Once Dee is committed, Jennifer and I can renovate the house for our family. Kids need the space, and Dee won't need it where she's going." They'd planned to put me in an institution and raise their children in my grandmother's house. That night, Caleb called me. His voice was sickeningly sweet. "Hey sis, how was your appointment? Mom said you seemed upset when you got home." "It was fine," I said, testing him. Good. You know we all just want what's best for you. Maybe after you get some help you can make better decisions about your situation." "What situation?" "Well, that big house is a lot for one person to handle. Maybe it would be better in more capable hands. Jennifer's been looking at schools in the area. The kids love that big backyard." The casual way he discussed moving his family into my home while I was locked away made my stomach turn. I hung up. The next morning, I called the law firm that handled Grandma's estate. Her lawyer, Harrison Wickham, had been her friend for 30 years. "I need to see you immediately," I said. "My family is trying to have me declared incompetent to steal my inheritance." Harrison's voice hardened. "Come in now. Bring everything." At his office, I played the recordings. Harrison's face grew darker with each revelation. "This is conspiracy to commit fraud," he said. "And Dr. Brennan could lose his license." "But can they succeed?" I asked. "Not if we act first." "But Dakota, once we start this war, your family will never forgive you." I thought about Grandma Rosalie, who'd fought her own battles against people who underestimated her. She'd told me stories about her first husband's family trying to cheat her out of his estate after he died in Korea. She'd had to sue her own in-laws to keep her home. "They started this war," I said. "I'm just going to finish it." We spent the next week building our case. Harrison hired a private investigator who uncovered Caleb's gambling debts and Jennifer's shopping addiction. Their marriage was falling apart, and they desperately needed money. The investigator, a gruff ex-cop named Tommy Riggs, brought me photos of Caleb at underground poker games, losing thousands of dollars each night. Jennifer's credit card statements showed purchases at luxury stores, followed by returns the next day when the cards were declined. "Your brother owes some dangerous people," Tommy told me. "The kind who break kneecaps when payments are late." That explained his desperation. It wasn't just greed, it was survival. Meanwhile, I continued my sessions with Dr. Brennan, recording everything. During our third meeting, he finally dropped the pretense. Your family is very concerned about your spending habits, he said. $2 million is a significant responsibility. I haven't spent anything except groceries, I replied. But you're planning to make changes to the property? I hadn't mentioned any changes. What makes you think that? He realized his mistake. Your brother mentioned you'd talked about renovations. Another lie to add to the collection. Doctor, what specific changes did my brother say I was planning? Dr. Fies. Brennan shuffled his papers nervously. Converting the house into some sort of commune. I stared at him. A commune? For other mentally unstable individuals. Your brother was quite concerned about the safety implications. Caleb had told this man I was planning to turn Grandma's Victorian mansion into a hippie commune. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so sinister. By our fourth session, Dr. Brennan was practically writing my commitment papers. I'm recommending a temporary conservatorship, he said. Your brother has graciously offered to manage your affairs until you're more stable. How convenient, I said. He's also researched some excellent facilities where you can receive proper care. There's one in Montana that specializes in cases like yours. Montana, 3 states away from anyone who might visit or ask questions. That evening, Mom called in tears. Sweetheart, we got Dr. Brennan's report. We had no idea you were struggling so much. Caleb thinks it would be best if you moved in with him and Jennifer while you recover. Recover from what? Your episode. The paranoid delusions, the conversations with Grandma. Mom, have you actually seen me act paranoid or delusional? Silence. Or are you just taking Caleb's word for it? He wouldn't lie about something like this, she said weakly. But I could hear doubt creeping into her voice. Mom had always been sharp, and something wasn't adding up for her either. Mom, when was the last time you spent more than an hour alone with me? Another pause. Well, there's been so much to handle with the estate. Exactly. Every time you've seen me, Caleb and Jennifer were there too, weren't they? Guiding the conversation, interpreting my words, explaining my behavior. I heard her breath catch. Dakota, are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should trust your own judgment instead of letting my brother think for you. The next morning, I went to the courthouse with Harrison. We filed a motion to dismiss the competency petition and submitted our evidence. The judge, Dorothy Kemp, reviewed everything with a furrowed brow. This is highly irregular, she said. Mr. Wickham, are you suggesting Dr. Brennan falsified a psychiatric evaluation? I'm suggesting he was paid to reach a predetermined conclusion, Harrison replied. And we have proof. Judge Kemp scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week. But that night, Caleb made his biggest mistake. He broke into my house. I was upstairs in Grandma's bedroom when I heard the back door open. I'd changed the locks, but he'd always been good with tools. I grabbed my phone and crept to the window. Caleb was in the living room with a flashlight, searching through Grandma's antique desk. He found nothing, then moved to her bedroom. I was hiding in the walk-in closet, recording everything. Where did she put them? He muttered, tearing through drawers. When he started pulling paintings off the walls, looking for the safe, I stepped out. Looking for something specific? I asked. He spun around, flashlight blinding me. Dakota, you scared me. I was just checking on you. The door was open. The door was locked. You broke in. That's your paranoia talking again, he said smoothly. See? This is exactly what Dr. Brennan was worried about. Really? Then explain why you're searching through my belongings at 2 a.m. I wasn't searching. I was looking for your medication. Mom said you stopped taking your anxiety pills. I'd never taken anxiety medication. Another lie he'd invented. What medication, Caleb? What's the name of it? He faltered. The blue ones. For your nerves. Get out, I said, before I call the police. Dakota, you're having an episode. Let me help you. Get out. He left, but not before saying, this just proves you need supervision. I'll be back with Mom and Dad tomorrow. I called the police anyway. Officer Martinez took my statement and the video footage. When I showed him the recordings of Dr. Brennan, his expression changed. Ma'am, this is evidence of multiple felonies. We need to contact the DA's office. While we waited for the detective, Officer Martinez told me about his own grandmother's experience with financial elder abuse. These predators target vulnerable people during grief, he said. They use family trust as a weapon. Your brother's probably done this before. The detective who arrived, Sandra Hayes, had seen similar cases. The psychiatric angle is new, she admitted. Usually they just claim incompetence due to age or addiction. But the pattern is the same. Isolate the victim, control the narrative, then swoop in as the hero. Detective Hayes asked if I'd be willing to wear a wire for my next family dinner. We need them to admit what they're doing on tape. The dinner was scheduled for Sunday at my parents' house. I wore the recording device under my sweater, my hands shaking as I rang the doorbell. Caleb and Jennifer were already there with their kids, 5-year-old twins named Austin and Brooklyn. The children ran to hug me, innocent of their parents' schemes. Aunt Dakota, Brooklyn shouted. Daddy says we might move into Grandma's big house. Jennifer quickly shushed her, but the damage was done. Dad looked confused. Move into Dakota's house? What's she talking about? Caleb laughed nervously. Kids say the silliest things. She probably overheard us discussing options for Dakota's care. Throughout dinner, Caleb and Jennifer tag-teamed their manipulation. They'd reference conversations I'd supposedly had, symptoms I'd supposedly displayed, and concerns they'd supposedly witnessed. Remember when Dakota called you at 3 a.m. crying about intruders? Jennifer asked Mom. I'd never made such a call. And the time she forgot we'd planned lunch and accused us of lying? Caleb added. That lunch had never been planned. Mom was starting to look uncertain. I don't remember. That's the thing about Dakota's condition. Doctors, Brennan's voice came from the living room. I turned to see him entering with Caleb's lawyer, a weaselly man named Peter Finch. My blood pressure spiked. They'd ambushed me. Dr. Brennan, Mr. Finch, Dad said, standing. I didn't know you were joining us. We thought it would be helpful to discuss Dakota's treatment plan as a family, Dr. Brennan said, settling into Grandma's old chair like he owned it. Finch spread documents across the coffee table. These are the conservatorship papers. We can have this resolved quickly and quietly. I looked at the papers. They gave Caleb complete control over my finances, medical decisions, and living arrangements. There was even a clause allowing him to sell my property without my consent. You want me to sign away my entire life, I said. We want you to get help, Caleb replied. The facility in Montana has an excellent program. Montana? Mom asked. Why so far away? Specialized treatment, Dr. Brennan said smoothly. She needs intensive therapy away from triggers. Mom looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. Dakota, what do you think about all this? It was the first time anyone had asked my opinion about my own life. I think, I said carefully, that if I were really as sick as they claim, I wouldn't be coherent enough to have this conversation. Caleb jumped in. That's the delusion talking. She thinks she's fine, but I'm sitting right here, I interrupted. Stop talking about me like I'm not in the room. See? Dr. Brennan said to my parents. Aggressive, paranoid, hostile to authority. I stood up. I'm hostile to people trying to steal my inheritance and lock me away. The room went silent. Austin and Brooklyn looked scared. Dakota, Dad said gently, no one wants to lock you away. Then why are all these papers about committing me to a facility in Montana? I grabbed the documents and started reading aloud. Patient will remain in secured residential treatment until deemed competent by supervising physician. I looked up. That means forever, if Dr. Brennan decides I'm never competent. Mom's face went white. Is that true? Finch cleared his throat. It's standard language? It's a life sentence, I said. And Caleb gets to spend my money while I rot in a psychiatric prison. The hearing arrived faster than expected. Judge Kemp's courtroom was packed with family members who'd been poisoned against me by months of Caleb's lies. Dr. Brennan took the stand first, confident in his assessment. He described my delusional episodes and dangerous paranoid behavior. In your professional opinion, Caleb's lawyer asked, is Dakota Montgomery capable of managing her financial affairs? Absolutely not, Dr. Brennan said. She requires immediate intervention. Harrison stood for cross-examination. Dr. Brennan, how many sessions did you have with my client? 4 comprehensive evaluations. And during these sessions, did my client ever display violent behavior? Not physically, but her verbal aggression? Yes or no, doctor? Did she display violent behavior? No. Did she threaten self-harm? No, but did she demonstrate an inability to perform basic daily functions? Dr. Brennan hesitated. Her judgment is severely impaired. Harrison smiled. Thank you. Now, doctor, are you aware that recording devices are legal in one-party consent states? Dr. Brennan's face went white. What? Your Honor, I'd like to play Exhibit A. The courtroom fell silent as my phone recording filled the air. Dr. Brennan's voice was crystal clear. The family wants her declared incompetent. I'll need 3 more sessions to build the case. Gasps echoed through the room. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad stared at Caleb in shock. Exhibit B, Harrison continued. Dr. Brennan's voice again. $2 million is a significant responsibility. Your brother has graciously offered to manage your affairs. Judge Kemp's face was stone. Dr. Brennan, did you predetermine the outcome of your evaluation before completing your assessment? Your Honor, I can explain. Yes or no? The family's concerns were valid. Doctor, you will answer the question directly. Dr. Brennan looked at Caleb desperately. Yes, he whispered. The courtroom exploded. Judge Kemp slammed her gavel repeatedly. Mr. Wickham, please present your remaining evidence. Harrison played Caleb's recorded phone calls, showed the property development contract, and displayed the financial documents proving his gambling debts. By the time he finished, Caleb was sweating through his suit. But the most damaging evidence was yet to come. Harrison called Tommy Riggs to the stand. Mr. Riggs, what did your investigation reveal about the defendant's financial situation? Caleb Montgomery owes $180,000 to various creditors, Tommy testified. His house is in foreclosure. His wife has maxed out 17 credit cards. And he owes $50,000 to some very dangerous people who aren't shy about collecting debts. Did you observe Mr. Montgomery engaging in any illegal activity? Yes. Gambling at underground poker games, frequenting loan sharks, and attempting to sell property he doesn't own. The jury was taking notes furiously. Harrison then called Jennifer to the stand. She'd been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. Mrs. Montgomery, did your husband discuss plans for Dakota's inheritance? Jennifer couldn't look at me. Yes. He said once Dakota was committed, we'd sell her house and use the money to pay our debts. Did he mention how long Dakota would remain committed? He said it would be permanent. That Dakota would never get better because she'd never get the chance to prove she was sane. The courtroom was dead silent. Did your husband discuss the children's future in Dakota's house? Jennifer broke down crying. He showed me room plans. Austin and Brooklyn were going to have the whole 3rd floor. We were going to gut the 1st floor and make it modern. He said Dakota would never know because she'd never get out. Harrison returned to the defense table, but Judge Kemp had more questions. Mrs. Montgomery, were you aware that committing someone to psychiatric care under false pretenses is a felony? I thought the doctors knew what they were doing. Did you believe Dakota was actually mentally ill? Jennifer looked at me finally. No, she seemed sad about her grandmother, but not crazy. But Caleb said the grief would eventually make her sick anyway, so we were just helping it along. Your Honor, Harrison said, this is a calculated conspiracy to defraud my client of her lawful inheritance through manufactured evidence of mental incompetency. Judge Kemp called a recess. When we returned, her expression was thunderous. "I have practiced law for 32 years, she began, and this is the most egregious abuse of the legal system I have witnessed. Dr. Brennan, your medical license will be reported to the state board. Mr. Montgomery, you are permanently barred from any involvement in your sister's affairs. This petition is dismissed with prejudice." But she wasn't finished. "Furthermore, given the evidence of fraud, I'm ordering a criminal investigation. Bailiff, please escort Dr. Brennan into custody pending charges." As they led Dr. Brennan away in handcuffs, he looked back at Caleb with pure hatred. "You promised me this would be simple," he hissed. In the hallway, my family surrounded me. Mom was crying, Dad looked stunned, and various aunts and cousins who'd believed Caleb's lies were suddenly apologetic. But Caleb himself was nowhere to be seen until I walked to my car. He was waiting beside it, his face twisted with rage. "You've destroyed everything," he snarled. "Jennifer left me this morning. I'm going to lose my house. My kids won't even look at me." "Good," I said calmly. "Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to have your family turn against you." "This isn't over," he threatened. "Yes, it is." The criminal trial began 3 months later. Caleb was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, and Dr. Brennan faced multiple counts of professional misconduct and fraud. The property developer was also implicated when investigators discovered he'd been paying Caleb monthly installments in anticipation of acquiring Grandma's house. During the trial preparation, more victims came forward. Dr. Brennan had been falsifying evaluations for years, helping families steal from elderly relatives and vulnerable individuals. The scope of his crimes was staggering. A woman named Patricia told me her story in the courthouse hallway. Her son had used Dr. Brennan to have her declared incompetent after her husband died, leaving her $1 million insurance policy. She'd spent 3 years in a state facility before a nurse helped her contact a lawyer. "I was lucid the whole time," she said, tears in her eyes. "But no one would listen. They said I was delusional for insisting I didn't belong there." An elderly man named Frank had lost his farm to his nephew using the same scheme. His nephew had claimed Frank was developing dementia and needed intensive care. Frank had spent 2 years fighting the commitment before escaping and proving his competence. The prosecutor, District Attorney Rebecca Walsh, told me they'd identified at least 30 victims over 5 years. The total amount stolen was over $15 million. During the trial, more evidence emerged about Caleb's desperation. Phone records showed he'd been in contact with loan sharks who'd threatened to kill him if he didn't pay up within 30 days of Grandma's death. Jennifer testified against Caleb, revealing that he'd been planning to institutionalize me permanently once he gained control of my assets. They'd already picked out a long-term psychiatric facility in another state. He said Dakota would be better off there. Jennifer sobbed on the stand, that she was too damaged to live independently. The most chilling testimony came from the facility director in Montana. Caleb had toured the place twice, asking specific questions about security, visitor policies, and discharge procedures. Mr. Montgomery was particularly interested in our policy regarding patients who claim they've been wrongfully committed, the director testified. He asked how we handle those cases. "What did you tell him?" DA Walsh asked. "I explained that we have a thorough evaluation process, but ultimately deferred to the committing physician's judgment. In other words, if Dr. Brennan said she needed to stay, she would stay? Indefinitely, yes." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Caleb got 5 years in prison. Dr. Brennan got 10. At the sentencing hearing, I was allowed to give a victim impact statement. "Your Honor," I said, looking directly at my brother, "Caleb didn't just try to steal my inheritance. He tried to steal my identity, my sanity, my freedom. He convinced our entire family that I was mentally ill so he could justify caging me like an animal while he spent my grandmother's money. Caleb wouldn't meet my eyes. But what he didn't understand is that Grandma Rosalie taught me to fight. She survived the Great Depression, World War II, and the death of her husband at 35. She raised 2 children alone, built a successful business, and accumulated wealth through intelligence and determination. She didn't leave me that inheritance because she pitied me. She left it because she knew I was strong enough to protect it." I paused, looking at my parents in the gallery. "I forgive my family for believing lies about me. Fear and manipulation can cloud judgment, but I will never forget who stood by me when it mattered, and who didn't." After the hearing, Mom approached me hesitantly. "Dakota, I'm so sorry. We should have trusted you." "You should have," I agreed. "But Mom, this isn't about forgiveness anymore. This is about consequences." Dad nodded sadly. "We understand if you don't want us in your life. I don't want you out of my life," I said carefully. "But our relationship is going to be very different now. You chose Caleb over me without question. That revealed something I need to remember. It's been 2 years since the trial ended. I've completely renovated Grandma's house, turning the 3rd floor into an art studio where I create pieces inspired by her collection. I quit my marketing job and now run a nonprofit helping victims of financial abuse. The organization, called the Rosalie Montgomery Foundation, has helped over 300 families fight fraudulent conservatorships and guardianships. We provide legal aid, investigative services, and emotional support to people whose families have turned against them. Mom and Dad visit occasionally, but our conversations are stilted and careful. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing, and I'm tired of reassuring them. Some relationships can't be fully repaired, only managed. The extended family took sides. Some relatives apologized and were welcomed back. Others doubled down, insisting Caleb had good intentions despite the evidence. Thanksgiving is a much smaller affair now. Caleb was released after serving 3 years. He moved to another state and works at a hardware store. Jennifer remarried and won't let him see their children unsupervised. He sent me a letter once, claiming he'd found God in prison and wanted forgiveness. The letter was 3 pages of self-pity and justification. He claimed his gambling addiction was a disease, that he'd been desperate to provide for his family, that Dr. Brennan had convinced him I really was sick. He never once acknowledged the depth of his betrayal or the fact that he'd planned to imprison me for life. I never responded. But Jennifer's twins, now 8 years old, sometimes send me drawings. Their stepfather seems like a good man, and they're thriving in their new life. Austin drew me a picture of Grandma's house with a rainbow over it. Brooklyn sent me a story she wrote about a brave princess who saved her castle from a dragon. They don't know their biological father tried to steal their aunt's castle and lock her in a tower. Last month, I received a call from a young woman named Brianna, whose uncle was trying to have her declared incompetent after her grandmother left her a substantial inheritance. I read about your case online, she said. I think my family is doing the same thing yours did. I helped her record conversations with her psychiatrist. Sure enough, the same pattern emerged: predetermined conclusions, fabricated symptoms, and manufactured evidence of mental instability. Brianna's uncle is now in prison, and she kept her inheritance. She also donated $50,000 to the foundation, allowing us to help even more families. The foundation has expanded to include a network of ethical psychiatrists who provide second opinions free of charge. We've also lobbied for stronger oversight of competency evaluations and mandatory recording of all psychiatric assessments in legal proceedings. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, one of our consulting psychiatrists, told me something that stuck with me. The same traits that make someone vulnerable to financial abuse, trusting nature, family loyalty, willingness to give others the benefit of the doubt, are actually signs of mental health, not illness. Sometimes the sanest response to an insane situation is to fight back. The house is fuller now than when Grandma lived here. I rent the second floor to a young mother escaping an abusive marriage. The basement apartment houses a college student working her way through law school. The first floor is mine, along with Grandma's art studio on the third floor. We're all healing here, in different ways. I still live surrounded by Grandma's art and her memory. Every morning I sit in her garden with coffee and read her letters, out loud because I miss her voice. If my family thinks that makes me crazy, that's their problem. I found one letter I'd never seen before, hidden inside her jewelry box. It was addressed to me and dated just a week before she died. My dearest Dakota, it read, if you're reading this, then someone has tried to take what belongs to you. I want you to know that I chose you not because you were the obvious choice, but because you were the right choice. You have strength you haven't discovered yet, and wisdom beyond your years. Don't let anyone convince you that grief makes you weak or that love makes you vulnerable. Fight for what's yours and remember that sometimes the people who claim to love us most are the ones we need to protect ourselves from. You are not alone. I am with you always. Love, Grandma Rosalie. The letter also contained the combination to a second safe I hadn't known existed, hidden behind a bookshelf in the library. Inside, I found additional evidence of Caleb's plans. Emails between him and Dr. Brennan dating back 6 months before Grandma's death. They'd been planning this from the moment her diagnosis was confirmed. I know who I am, and I know what I'm worth. Some things are more valuable than family approval. Like self-respect, like truth, like the courage to fight for what's rightfully yours, even when everyone you love tells you to surrender. Grandma Rosalie would be proud. She always said the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I do now. Some fires don't destroy you. They just burn away everything that was never really you to begin with.